I feel like I was always on the path I'm on right now, I guess. My family comes first regardless of everything, so, like, I have to get a job that will financially support, and then everything else kinda comes separate. We were, like, somewhat evenly matched, and I ended up pinning him off of just, like, slamming the living shit out of him, and he, like, cried a little bit, and that made me feel really good about myself.
You felt good that you made your opponent cry.
Well, yeah, dude, it was awesome. I mean, like, that's the best part. Like, yeah, of course. That's not sociopathic to say that I made a kid cry in a wrestling match. All right, he he shouldn't have lost if he didn't want to cry about it. Okay, I deserve those tears. I worked hard for those tears.
It's the best part when you make them cry.
I okay, it sounds kind of bad though, like that, but yeah, kind of like yeah, pretty much exactly that.
The only thing is there seems to be a delay between your video and your audio right now.
Okay, so, like, I went to ventriloquist school, so sometimes I, like, subconsciously will, like, delay my speech versus, like, what I'm saying face does, you know?
You actually went to
Alright,
the
let's no, I'm just I'm sorry, I'm just stupid as hell. Alright.
because I did see this amazing clip on Reddit of a guy doing an act like that. He like had mic problems and he was arguing with his mic, and the mic was talking back to him. It was a really good act.
Are you gonna apologize?
Or what?
Or else start again?
Start again?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Hello? Hello? Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You're out of sync.
I know.
Are you sorry now?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Uh-huh. That's not what I said.
I changed it.
Thank you. Because of you, I have a puppet suffocating in the trunk right now.
No, let me out of here right now. Let me out. You let me out or
My wife's yelling at me for that joke, okay. But yeah, I hope it's not bugging out. But yeah, man, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, and I'll keep your chat open on the side as well so I can ask you questions from chat. Yeah, no, it's going well. So thanks for agreeing to the interview. So just to start, what should I call you? Makiah?
Yeah, Makiah, that's my name.
All right, sounds good. And how did you get into content creation?
But I think for me, like the big thing was just quitting Magic the Gathering. I think was what did it because I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering and like Hearthstone side, and quitting Magic the Gathering made me like focus on Hearthstone more. And that was really like the switch was like during COVID, Magic. My local game shop was like having issues when it reopened. I eventually decided to just like quit entirely. In that process, I started playing more and more Hearthstone, started getting better at Hearthstone, and like the same way that I was like getting kind of good at Magic. And I decided like, okay, I should stream this because that'll be like the best way for me to get better. And then once I started streaming it, I started meeting other people who also stream it, and that kind of made me like that's how I got into it, and that's what I kinda keep going. And then, fun fact, I didn't quit for, like, good, like, 3 years. So, me recently coming back for this time, which is, like, the second answer would be, I just was playing Classic WoW, and then eventually people were like, "Why don't you stream Hearthstone again?" Okay, I'll do that. I only get 10 viewers. Now I'm a partner streamer, so, yeah.
Awesome. It looks like you're having much more success the second time around.
Yeah, no, it was, I felt like I tried harder to be a streamer the first time, and now I just, like, turned on the people who remembered my stream before and the friends I made before were still there, and, like, maybe my mindset reset a little bit, and I'm at a mental place where everything's like I ended up liking it a lot more. Maybe, like, I actually wanna do it
Yeah, I can see that being important. So when did you make your resurgence?
November 20th?
So it's been about 7 months. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And what is your dream career? Is it streaming?
I don't know if I have a dream career. I think right now, if I could just do nothing else, it would be, like, streaming and making YouTube videos. Something like creative. I think if anything, my dream career would be writing though. Like if I could just like write for like a TV show or write for like a movie or like write novels, like something like that. I really like writing. Um, and that's why I make my guides written because that's something I like am like I like doing is I like writing things. And I like making videos too, but I love writing. So if I'm gonna put some like work into like a hobby, then it's a lot easier for me just to do it written than any other way.
What kind of novels would you write?
Fantasy, like, yeah,
Brandon Sanderson
just
style?
like I don't know who that is.
Oh, you don't?
What was
Okay.
the what was the name?
Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, he's a well-known fantasy author, and he actually has a great course online on fantasy writing and
Oh,
world building. He kind of looks like you
gotcha.
too.
Yeah, I googled it. It kind of does. It's funny. I'm not super familiar with his work, but I recognize some of the covers from like bookstores and stuff. But no, I'm like really into like Lord of the Rings and like Tolkien stuff. Those are like my biggest inspirations. I used to walk around with a copy of like The Hobbit in my backpack for like my entire like middle school through like high school. Just like it was like just one of the things I carried with me. It was a copy of The Hobbit because I liked it so much.
Yeah, I actually haven't read Lord of the Rings, but I have read The Hobbit, and I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's. I think it's way better.
Yeah. How did you end up in tech, in data science or data management, when you were so clearly interested in creative things?
Well, like for me, like creative things don't ever make you any money.
Hmm.
So like I've always looked in like computers and business as like my way of like making money. And then I kind of work on things on the side just to see where it goes outside of that. So like for me it's always like okay, my family comes first regardless of everything. So like I have to get a job that will financially support and then everything else kind of comes separate.
Did you always know that your family would come first?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Were you raised in like a culture of strong family values?
No, not even close. No, not even a little bit. I think that's probably why I was focused on like I wanted to have like my own family and stuff like that and do things the right way. Because I did not grow up I definitely want to say good family values at all. Probably like zero values in total would be a better way to describe it. So yeah, I think it's more of like being able to provide my family with all things I didn't have was like more important for me like from the get go. The tech stuff was a really good opportunity for me. One of the things I do really like doing is working with people, and I like writing like professional documents too. Like for me, like writing isn't just books or novels stuff like that, even though that's like preferred. But sometimes making an email look like really pretty, or like making something that then gets turned into like a marketing pamphlet could look really good. Writing like an email to like a CEO of like a large company is like that stuff is equally interesting to me. Maybe not equally, but like it's close. You know, it's like comparable. So I did find a job in tech that I really like. It wasn't just computers, and it wasn't just like sitting at a call center all day. Um, so I guess that's how I kind of got stuck in my current position because otherwise I probably would have kept moving around.
And how did you meet your wife?
I met my wife on Tinder. Yep. That is the story though. Oh, that's the story I want to tell. She's always in there with me. What's the other story? Oh yeah, well I met her at college, but like I wasn't in college at the time. I had dropped out at that point, and she was still going. But I lived in the town and grew up in the town like next to like the college town I grew up. I didn't travel very far, and then we basically moved into together like while she was still in school, and so we kind of met at college as well. But Tinder brought me back into the school, so I say Tinder did it, and yeah, yeah.
And what was your first date like?
First date. Um, the first date was like she drove over the mountains to come see me because there's a mountain in between the town, and she got stuck on the mountain pass and had to have a car tow her back home, and never actually made it to see me. It was great. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, that was how that first day happened. First day she actually met me. I don't know. We just like yeah, I think it was like the next day. Like we just went out, got like ice cream and stuff, and watched Harry Potter. I think it was. We had like a relatively like casual relationship for a bit, where like we didn't like officially say like we're like boyfriend and girlfriend until we had like known each other for a while and became like friends. Because it was mostly like a friends thing at first, and then like once she was already basically my best friend, then we started going out. The second answer, because a lot of these are gonna be like first answer then second answer, because my life is chaotic. I guess. Well, probably just like one slight notch over the average maybe. Took that step and then we were like, okay, let's go on our like first day as a couple. And that day is actually really sweet. We went to a local restaurant in my college town. I was driving over the mountains from where I still lived at the time because we lived across the mountains from each other. And on the way there, I called the restaurant and I asked them to make mozzarella sticks to be there waiting for us because that's her favorite food. Like she like obsesses over mozzarella sticks and cheese in general. And so I had that there waiting for her. And so they sat us down, and then they brought out the mozzarella sticks, and she was like, "Oh!" And I'm pretty sure like that's when she like mentally like married me.
When did you know that she was the one? And how did you know?
Honey, when did I know that you were the one?
You have to ask her, seriously?
I don't know. Probably like not long after I met her. She seemed really cool, like pretty much off the bat. But I don't know. I was like non-committal for a while. Like I don't know. Like a lot going on, and I wasn't super sure about like what I wanted to do. Not with her specifically, but like just in general, right? And so I want to say like pretty much right away. I knew she was going to be the one. I mean, if it was instant, then it wouldn't mean anything, right?
You're a new dad, right? So what are I guess, the traits that you value most in her as like a mother?
Oh yeah, she's a great mother. She's like she works like a daycare and stuff for a while, so she's like she just knows a lot about kids in general, and she's just like all about like being a mom. It's like her whole her whole shtick is like how much of a mom she is half the time, in like a good way. Um, even before we had like babies, and so like I wanted to, obviously have kids with someone who really wanted to have kids, and then like was that I knew was good with kids. And she was like the baby person at the daycare she worked at. Like she always worked with the youngest babies. The other thing outside that was just like me and her are like opposites in like a lot of ways. And so because we're so like different, she like rounds out like my edges. Like I just like let you do things on the fly, and she's like very like organized. But like when like chaos strikes, I'm like fine. Like if something like crazy would just like happen, I can just like figure it out. And she like kind of panics, and so like she's good at like planning things, and I'm good at like reacting to things. And I don't know. In a lot of ways, we're like very opposite, and so we work really well together in that way. I think if there was someone like exactly like me, I don't know if we would have like as easy of a time raising a kid. you know.
Complementary traits are very important for sure. What do you think is the most fulfilling thing about being a dad so far?
The most fulfilling thing about being a dad, just like watching the little guy smile. He's such a smiley little dude. He's very cute. I think a lot of the stuff that becomes fulfilling with being a dad comes like later on. Because right now he's like a baby, and I think when I'm gonna be at the point where like I can reflect back on like what was my childhood like at this point versus what his childhood is like. I think at that point it'll really like hit me just like how basically I feel like I'm doing a better job or giving him like things that like I didn't necessarily have, and that kind of stuff like matters a lot to me. Like once I can see him basically getting like all the things that like he really deserves, I just like that any kid like would deserve. I think it'll like that kind of stuff will be like more rewarding than the current. Not that the current isn't, but like yeah, just there's a lot I didn't have as a kid, and like just being able to see him like be surrounded by family and like love and like good things, um, would I think that's like gonna really matter when I can look and say like okay like I was like the father in this kid's life, and like I was able to help him like through all these different things, um, rather than just like him having to deal with it on his own. I think that'll be like the most rewarding thing for me personally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What do you think are going to be the biggest differences between your childhood and his? So you mentioned one is being surrounded by loving family.
Yeah, no, probably way less drugs would probably be like the first difference. Like way less drugs.
But still some.
I don't do any drugs.
Oh, none. Okay.
I don't really even drink anymore. I used to drink sometimes, but like yeah, no, I'm like pretty much sober. Not even like as like a point to be sober. I just like don't partake like I used to in anything.
So what advice do you have for other young men who are still sort of, because I don't know if you've heard, but it's becoming more and more common for men to grow up basically alone and feeling like they can't find purpose in life and struggling to really figure out, how to start a family, how to find a career they enjoy, and so on.
All I can do is like go off of my experience and like how I personally did things. For me, like I felt like that a lot more when I was actively looking for like meaning and purpose and like why is my life like this versus how do I get people to like me? How do I get people like how do I make my life more successful? And then what ended up like working for me was just focusing on myself, focusing on like how like my career personally would go in, my fitness at the time, just like all the different things that like I can improve about myself just for my own purpose, and like all the different steps that I could take to become happy in like my own skin was like the main thing I focused on before things started like really turning around. And I feel like especially with like social media, people are like posting things to impress somebody else or to be somebody else. And people really need to do is find like who they are and like what works for them personally. Like quit trying so hard and just like kind of exist and be your own person. eventually like you'll find that groove that you kind of belong into. Then even if you are alone, like then you'll be by yourself. You'll be happy with yourself in a way that does matter. And if people see you being happy with yourself, then people just gravitate towards you.
That's excellent advice. So I'm curious, what do you think your wife would say is what drew her to you as a person?
My hot body, like I'm just really good looking. I think that's probably what did it to her. I think she saw me one time and was like, "Damn, that's a daddy right there," something like that, probably. No, like I don't know. I think I just make her laugh all the time, and I think that's good enough for her.
Yeah, so other than content creation, writing, your tech job, what are some things that, and your family, of course, what are some things that bring you fulfillment in your life?
I like cooking. I like my dogs. Those are two big things. I got two big dogs. I used to live on a farm for like a good few years when I was in like junior high school, where we had like chickens and geese and stuff. And so I eventually want to have some kind of animal, like outdoor animal, like a chicken or a goat or something like that too. I definitely like raising animals. It's a lot of fun. I'm real good with animals. Probably better than people, even though they can't talk or anything. I mean, they get you. If you can talk to a goose all day long. They never tell you to shut up.
So looking at the modern world today, compared to the world you grew up in, so the world that your son is going to grow up in, what advice can you offer people growing up in this world? And what mistakes do you think they might be making?
I think kids that think that like mewing, like where you suck in your cheeks, is really weird. People should stop doing that. I don't think it does anything. Um,
For the jawline?
but
Yeah.
yeah, the jawline. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think kids will figure it out. Their world will be different, and that's probably gonna be okay. I don't stress it out about like what other people do with their lives too much. There's not really like, and people in my life, like I wish the best for people. I wish that like people get the most out of their life. But as far as like generationally, I don't know. It's pretty varied. We're like looking at the most documented generation in history, and so we're getting to see like everything that they do on like a molecular level. And so, like everything that like kids do these days is like extremely judged and like looked down upon in like every possible way. I guess the only thing I could say is just like ignore that and stop recording things as much. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they should just keep doing that. Maybe that's just the way of the future. I think people should stop judging or being judged and have a better life.
Yeah, I think that's a well-balanced perspective. I'm curious, what is the biggest mistake you've made that you are glad you made?
That I'm glad I made. I feel like a lot of the mistakes I've made, I would like undo. There's not a lot of things that I look at that are like big mistakes that I look back on like super fondly. Like I learned from things. Jeez, that's I don't know why that's so tough, but like I don't know, I can tell you a bunch of mistakes that I wish I didn't. I wish I paid all my parking tickets at Central, so I had less like administration fees.
Yeah.
When I went to college, I wish that met more people when I was in like high school time instead of waiting to college to meet like most of my current friends. Yeah, I think maybe one mistake was that like a lot of people, myself included, think that me quitting sports at the time I did was a mistake. And there's definitely some truth to that. I was like, I'm a very large man, right? And I had some really good prospects for a few different team sports. I had an injury, not like a life threatening injury or anything like too overly serious, but an injury that took me out of it. And during that time, I focused more on college and going to school and all those things rather than that. I guess that's probably a good mistake. But I'm not sure if I'd even call that a mistake. That's just a tough one. I feel like I was always on the path I'm on right now, I guess. And so like most of the things that would be like big mistakes or stuff that just like took me longer to get to where I am right now. And so when I think about things that like that I'm glad like happened, but there I would also consider mistakes. It's like all those things are things that like prevented me from getting where I'm at right now. So I don't know.
So this was kind of your destiny, sounds like.
Well, there's at least my goal. Maybe my destiny is to like be homeless on the streets or something, and this is just where I've temporarily ended up. I don't know. I've just, it's definitely. I feel like destiny is not always what you want it to be, but I definitely wanted that to be my destiny. Is like being at home with kids and working a stable job and a happy relationship. I think those are all value and goals that I've strived for.
So if you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would you pick?
I think if I had to like sit down and have dinner with them, it'd be like my dad, my grandpa, and my great grandpa. Just because those are the people like I missed out the most out of my life that I actually could gain something from, just to learn a little bit of family history.
Yeah, I feel like it really sucks for kids to be deprived of sort of a healthy masculine figure in their life. And it does seem to be becoming more common these days. And I'm glad you'll be there for your family, father figure. You'll kind of break that cycle. And what are your thoughts on video games for kids? Like, do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing, neutral?
I mean, kind of neutral, right? Like, in a way, it's like I definitely see where things could like go wrong, but like at the same time, I think not necessarily gaming specifically, but just like having an outlet to be competitive is like really important for kids. Having something like healthy to be competitive about, I think it serves a major purpose for a lot of kids that like shouldn't be overlooked or overstated. Even though people like to paint things in like a binary, this or that.
So how would you feel if your son took an interest in Hearthstone?
Hearthstone, yeah, I'd be cool with it. I mean, like, you have to have like a certain amount of things where it's like, okay, you can't only play Hearthstone. You have to set like realistic expectations. But like, I think it'd be cool to have like a shared interest. I think having like card games, especially in person card games, are nice because they teach you like sportsmanship in a way that sports does as well. But also like I don't think you like sportsmanship isn't always optional in sports themselves because you have a coach yelling at you, you have all these different like factors going on. Or it's more optional in like a card game, right? So it like matters more. Like, why should he be a good person to like the guy who just like kicked your ass in a wrestling match versus the guy who like beat your ass in the card game? Like, you don't have to be like respectful at all to the guy in the card game, um, necessarily, but like you do, but you don't, right? So it kind of like matters more. I feel like understanding like the why you should be sportsman, like the why you should like take your L's and stuff like that is stuff that like I learned from card games in a way that mattered a lot to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because Hearthstone was one of my first sort of serious card games, and I ended up learning so much from it that I don't think I could have learned anywhere else, which was like, understanding odds, playing to your outs, realizing that you have to be more aggressive when you're behind and actually more defensive when you're ahead, which was kind of unintuitive, and realizing that you can't just look at the outcome of decisions, you have to look at, what was the information you had, what was the probability, and sometimes you'll make the right decision and have a bad outcome, but you should still make that same decision in the.
Yep, that's definitely the case a lot of times.
Is there a martial art you would recommend people pick up to improve their sort of physique and also their mental well-being?
I mean, if you need someone to tell you like a martial art, then I think you should just start with wrestling. Like American wrestling's like pretty good. Like collegiate wrestling, just like the basics. It's like similar to judo, but it's like I don't know. It's a little bit simpler in most ways. Maybe a little bit less practical in some ways, but that's okay.
I'm thinking of learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I hear is somewhat similar to wrestling.
Yeah, it's like harder though, in like most ways. It's like yeah, it's more in my opinion. There's more. It's almost like more. It's almost like better in a lot of ways as like a thing. But like I feel like if you're not committed to like, if you don't know if you want to do any type of martial art or whatever, like collegiate wrestling is like it's like a really good start. Like you can't fuck it up, man. It's a good basis. You'll learn self defense. You learn a lot of good things. And it's like basically supported all ages. It's nothing like what you see in like WWE, of course, but it is a good like it'll teach you self defense and at like a low entry, and you're not gonna have to learn like anything extra.
What was your most memorable wrestling match?
My most memorable wrestling match, I learned this. I made a move slam. I can't even remember how I did it. All I know is I figured out how I could flip a guy over my back and slam him on the ground, which normally isn't legal. But I don't think they just didn't care, or it was like just legal enough. I'm sure there's a better name for it, but we were never taught it, and we figured it out at that event. And I didn't go very far in the tournament. I think I maybe got like top four in like a relatively small tournament weight class. But this one kid was like, we were like somewhat evenly matched, and I ended up pinning him off of just like slamming the living shit out of him. And he like cried a little bit, and that made me feel really good about myself.
You felt good that you made your opponent cry.
Well, yeah, dude, it was awesome. I mean, like that's the best part. Like, yeah, of course, you want them to feel like a little bit bad. Like, eventually, someone makes you feel like cry. I mean, I could lie and be like, I feel kind of bad because he was crying. No, it was awesome, man. Like he cried. It was hilarious. Man, I fucked that guy up. Like that's like half the reason why you do that because everyone's been that guy, you know. And so eventually, you just gotta like take your W's. You're like, yep, and at the end of the day, he's a better wrestler because I made him cry. So I really did him a service if you ask me.
You miss wrestling?
Oh yeah, I miss wrestling a lot. It's not sociopathic to say that I made a kid cry in a wrestling match. All right, he he shouldn't have lost if he didn't want to cry about it. Okay, I deserve those tears. I worked hard for those tears. See, people don't understand, but in a competitive like sport like that, where it's all physical, completely dominating somebody, like obviously if you do it all the time, or if you go extra to make them cry, sure, that's not okay. Accidentally making someone cry, that's hilarious. That's just the best thing you could do.
It's the best part when you make them cry.
I like okay, it sounds kind of bad though, like that, but yeah, kind of like yeah, pretty much exactly that. Um, yeah. Hey, I don't make the rules, man. I just know when they cry, it feels good, you know? No, but like, yeah. It's not like he was like sobbing. He was just like a little bit sniffly, you know? He's like, man, I really want to win that. I've cried in my wrestling matches, you know? I've had games where I was like super, super close and fucked around and lost by 1 point because I thought it was over, you know? And it sucks, but you learn from it. It's like it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Wexo asks, did you ever cry after a wrestling
Oh
match?
hell yeah. Oh yeah. Like a baby. I had a guy like dislocate my shoulder one time when I was already injured, and I cried from the pain, and I also cried because I lost a match I should have won. You know, both of those. It happens. It sucks, but that's why you got to relish when you do that to somebody else. You're like, hell yeah. If you feel bad every time you beat somebody, then and don't recognize the part that you just made them a better wrestler, then like, why are you even doing it? Are you just gonna like constantly give yourself so you don't hurt someone's feelings? Like, I don't know. They'll get over it. Crying is temporary. You know, that's building character. I wouldn't go out of my way to make anybody. I probably feel more bad about it now.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation. It's been good. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing it. It was definitely interesting to just talk about things.